This week I decided to challenge myself and try to build an entire robot using only caps. So I went through all my bits boxes and greebly boxes and picked out all of the caps and things like that I thought I may be able to use. So let's get started. Now, full disclosure, or warning I guess, I'm going to be saying the word cap a bunch of times during this project, seeing how this entire thing is made out of caps, so my apologies if that gets pretty annoying by the end. The nozzle of this cap will become the neck, and so I cut it a bit shorter, and then I realized after I was cutting it off that I could unscrew the entire thing, and it fits perfectly inside of this little spray cap, and then I can screw it back on, and it's really secure. To make sure that the glue and the paint later sticks, I rough up all of the plastic parts with a wire brush. Especially when you're working with a bunch of unknown plastics, this is a very important step. For the upper legs, I'll be using these two pump cap lids, and they're not exactly the same, but they're so close it's hard to tell the difference. I'm using a small wooden dowel just to make sure that they stick together. And I'll be gluing them together at a slight angle like this so that the legs flare out a bit. Using my Dremel tool and a sanding drum, I sand away some plastic so that the legs have a smooth transition into the body. To cover up that gap in between the two legs, I'm going to take this other cap, cut off the top, and then using my flush cutters, I'll cut an opening in the plastic, and this will slide over that gap and give him a bit of privacy over those down under areas. To make sure the legs are securely attached to the torso, I drill some holes and add some wire, and then I can attach them together with some super glue. And now he's no longer exposing himself. You're welcome. I'm building these shoulders, arms, and hands exactly in that order, starting with these little toothpaste-looking caps that will become the shoulders. They'll glue on something like this, but they don't have a whole lot of surface area right now to glue to, so I'll be using some of this 2-part epoxy putty, filling those openings so that it's easier to attach. A few more holes drilled and pins added, and these two can get glued into place. I want the shoulders to stick out just a bit further, so I'm going to take one of these really small little caps here, glue them to the end, and extend those shoulders out a tad bit. Moving on to the arms, I'm not really sure where this cap is from, but I like this large tube on the top, and so I'm going to cut that off and use that for the upper arm. For the elbow joint, I'll be using this cap nut, which may be a stretch, but it's got cap in the name, so I'm going to say it's good. Then I attach it to the upper arm using some super glue. For the lower arms and the legs, I needed a long, thin cap, and I found the perfect thing. They are the caps or the covers off of these needles. And don't worry, I'm not going to show the needles, so if you're scared of needles, don't worry, you're not going to see any. This is just the cap here, and that's a pin from a wire there, and it's glued in with a bit more of that 2-part epoxy. And it makes a really good lower arm. But it's a bit too long right now, so I'm going to cut it a bit shorter and then start working on the hands. The hand starts to get a bit tricky because it needs to be relatively small. So I'm going to cut the top off of this cap from a paint container. And then for the fingers, since I don't have anything that's small enough on its own, I'm going to be using a few pieces of this Gatorade cap. The lower legs are also very simple. For the knee joint, I'm using another one of those green caps filled with some more of that 2-part epoxy putty, and then using a pin and some super glue, I'll attach it to the upper legs. For the lower legs, I'm just using another one of those syringe needle caps with a bit of that epoxy putty inside and another pin to hold everything together. I don't have to shorten these at all as they're the perfect length as is. Moving on to the greeblies, I'm only adding a few, and I'm starting with this cap here from this tiny little test tube. I'm just going to cut it off, and this will become the eyeball. The spray cap head already had sort of an eye shape, but I wanted something with a bit more 3 dimension. To give him some chest armor, I'm going to use another one of those pump lids from a soap container, and it will attach something like this. And then just for the back, I believe this is the cap off of a soup container. And to make everything easier to attach, I'll fill both with some of that 2-part epoxy putty. This stuff cures in about 20 minutes, so it's great for super quick projects like this. Ah, painting. This is when everything really starts to come together. All of those different colors from the different materials I've used all blend together and become one under that first coat of flat black primer. The model also gets a coat of white paint, and then I can move on to colors. The main colors I'll be using are this desert yellow, barren dune, and uniform gray. And what you're seeing throughout this entire painting process is mostly just the first coat of color that I'm putting down, but almost everything gets at least 2, if not 3 coats of color. The colors that I use look very World War II era to me, and especially with the decals that I add later, this whole thing looks like it belongs in that era. As of right now, that's all I really know story-wise for this robot. I don't know its purpose, its job, why it was built, etc. And so I'm going to leave that up to the viewers. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think this robot's job was, what its purpose was, why it was built, and when it was built. I would love to know. In the past, you guys have come up with some really creative and awesome stories for the robots I've built, and I love reading all of your comments. And now comes the time in the video where I get to thank my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. If you too would like your name flying across the screen during the painting process, you can join my Patreon. I'll have links at the end of the video, in the description, and on my page. Not only do you get a shout out in every single one of my videos, but you also get sneak peeks into what I'm building each week, and some behind the scenes footage and photos that no one else gets to see. If you'd like to support me and the channel for free, you can do so by liking and commenting on these videos, and consider subscribing. If you like what you're seeing here, I've got a bunch of other videos on my channel, so please check that out, and when you're there, please consider subscribing. Okay, YouTuber spiel over, I promise. Let's get back to the build. I use a black paint pen to add some detail markings, and then use some black paint and fill in the inside of the eye. Now, this is the first time I've used water decals in a long time, since back when I was a kid making model airplanes in my dad's garage, and I've forgotten how great they are. And so I really hope to be using more of these in the future, but as you can see, I'm still a bit rusty with it as I haven't done it in a long time. The decals I'm using are from a World War II era F6F Hellcat, and I found them in the bargain bin at my local hobby shop. Weathering is one of my favorite things to do. It can add a lot of realism, and it can also help cover up any small mistakes you may have made during the painting process. This is black wash. It's a mix of black acrylic paint and water, and I cover everything and then dab most of it away with a paper towel. This makes a great base layer to build off of. Speaking of that, I'm going to add some more weathering using this Tamiya weathering kit. It kind of looks like a little eyeshadow kit, and that's very similar to how you use it. I like to take one of these little sponge brushes, mix some of the rust and the dirty brown, and then I just hit all of the edges and then slowly work my way into the center of each piece that I'm working on. It works really well on lighter colors. As you can see on the elbow joint here, that weathering really pops out. It's also important to add weathering over the decals as they're technically part of the paint job and would be weathered the same as everything else. I use this Vallejo gunmetal to add chipping effects around some of the edges of the pieces. This technique is supposed to look like some of the paint has chipped away and exposed the raw metal underneath. And I stick mostly to the edges and the corners because those thin, sharp corners are where the paint in real life would be the most vulnerable and the most likely to chip. This technique does require somewhat of a steady hand, so if you have to brace yourself against a table or something sturdy, that's totally okay. For the base, I'm using this cap off of some food container, and I fill it with plaster of Paris to make sure that it's sturdy and it has some weight to it. I then add a bit of texture using some texture paint, and I'll paint the rest off camera. And with that, I'm pretty much finished, so let's see those final shots, shall we? Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a really fun, quick little project that only took me a few days to build and a few more days to edit and do all the voiceover. So under a week for the entire project. Another cool thing is that all of the caps I used were either found, given to me, or recycled, so they were all completely free. You can really make some amazing things with just trash and recycled goods like this. Anyways, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, put them down in the comment section and I'll try to get back to you. I do read every single comment and I try to respond if I can. If you did like this video, consider dropping a like, consider subscribing. I've got a whole bunch of others on my channel, and if you did like this one, it's almost a guarantee that you'll like at least one other video on my channel. Maybe one of these ones that are popping up right now on the end screens as I'm talking. Who knows? Alright, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.